as a therapist for normally 20 years, and in 95% of the cases of gay and lesbians I personally know and met and worked with, most of them were victims of sexual abuse as children. I'm speaking not what some white person wrote in some research study. I'm telling you what I know.
I've never blamed black women for black males becoming homosexual. What I have said, though, based on my work directly with children as a school psychologist, as a therapist, working almost 25 years, is more than 90% of all the black men I've worked with who had admitted to homosexual behavior or identity were sexually abused in the prepubescent years of their life. So I blame sexual abuse as being one of several triggers that can lead to a homosexual lifestyle.
Anti-Afro Svengalis. Thankfully, I was able to have my computer person fix the microphone. I had no idea what happened to it. It just was acting strange, and the sound just, I don't know what happened. But thankfully, it's fixed, and I appreciate your patience. Now, listen, before I even get into what the whole topic of the video is, I have to point out something that was pretty much neck and neck as being the most disturbing whole aspect of what Umar Johnson said. He was using terms and couching situations in manners that we don't even use in the field. Like, we don't even speak in this way. So I'm trying to figure out, when I was listening to him talk, what in the world would anyone do if he was at like a case consult, which we have all the time? We're having on Zoom right now and all these other applications. How would somebody be responding, another professional, hearing this? They would be speechless. That someone who claims to be an expert in mental health would be sitting around and using terms like homosexual, and then when it comes to addressing sexual orientation, he's using words like admitted to being homosexual and confessing. This is bizarre, people. This is bizarre. Here's the bottom line. I need to put it out there and make sure you understand it. If someone is truly a decent, reputable therapist, they aren't going to give any caring or concern that somebody is LGBT. But for some reason, Umar absolutely must address this issue. He must weigh in. He must continuously talk about this. That's the biggest problem of all. He's claiming to be a therapist, and none of the behavior that he's exhibiting would be sanctioned in this field. So we're already starting out, he's not even using the language. It's no different than hearing somebody refer to a black male child as a boy. That's foreign. I can't even tell you when I've ever heard that. Sitting around talking about clients and discussing case plans. Male child, teenager, young adult, adolescent, never boy. These are terms that Umar is using that tell me already that he's not a part of this field, because we don't even talk like this, people. It's the manner in which Umar is presenting the information that makes it more disgusting and vile. And let me tell you why I am saying that. And again, people are free to harbor their own opinions. I am not about to try to convince anybody any more than I would a client how he or she is supposed to be feeling. And that is the number one issue I have with Umar Johnson. He made these statements about people who have suffered either molestation in their earlier years or at some point in their developmental stages a sexual assault, and he is saying because this situation occurred between someone, the victim, and the perpetrator of the same gender, that this is causing the person to become gay. And let me tell you something about Umar Johnson. He's a very simple thinker. He's not a complex thinker. So in his mind, if something sounds right to him, he's going to push that as fact. So here's the facts. You can't deny this. This issue about whether or not someone who's LGBT was genetically predisposed, whether they've been socialized. Do you know how fierce this debate is in research? I would strongly encourage you to read research on this because there's some very interesting studies on this. People, you only need Google search and you will see the vast amount of information about whether or not someone is LGBT due to genetic predisposition, whether it's a choice, whether it's socialization. There are so many articles. And I'm not here to debate anybody or tell anyone how they should feel. People have a right to feel how they feel. My big issue is how people are treated behind it. And there's where Umar Johnson comes in. Umar Johnson, if you don't agree with Umar Johnson, he doesn't know anything about you. He's never met you. He has never seen you. What Umar Johnson started doing to me and Rev G, started calling us gay and lesbian because he didn't agree with what we were saying. What the hell is this? Umar Johnson is a disgrace. He went further than that. When he gets really, really off the rails, then he comes on with this gay male sex, quote, accusation. And I am using accusation in this context because he specifically targets married men with children and claims that they have issues or they have engaged with or they have a secret relationship with gay men and they're married with children. So Umar trying to say he doesn't target the LGBT population for hostility, he's lying. It doesn't matter. Umar doesn't have the disposition to be a therapist because it doesn't matter what the person says or does when they come to you. They're asking for your help. Their sexual orientation doesn't even matter. Unless the client brings up this issue or you see an opening because something comes to your attention. And that can come through in many ways. Most often, we call unguarded moments when people make statements. And so, yeah, you'll address something if it continues to come up as a theme, or it might even come up one time as a theme. It just depends. But you can't make an assumption for someone because they're gay, that they're going to come to therapy and they're going to talk about this is the main issue. Is that short-sighted and ignorant? Like people who are LGBT don't have any other concerns in life other than being LGBT? Oh my goodness. The way the thinking has been shaped around this issue is a problem for Umar. It shouldn't be the problem for somebody coming to get help, but it very much would be if Umar was in fact a therapist, which we know he was not. Thank God. You don't have to come down on one side or the other. The big issue with Umar Johnson, he then feels this is something by which you can judge people about whether or not they can be included in the black race, whether or not they actually deserve to live. And although he makes those statements, well, I'm not saying that I could harm LGBTs, Umar is a liar because he turns around and makes these statements, these derogatory statements, and then he starts saying things like, if you disagree with me, you're a lesbian. He started that with me. I don't even know Umar Johnson, never met him, never spoke to him. He doesn't know anything about me, but he started saying this. Because why? Because I challenged him for his ignorance when it comes to any and everything he has to say about the mental health field. This is just one of many issues. So let's talk about this a little bit more in depth. Umar Johnson is making a statement that if a person is LGBT, it's because they were molested. Then help us out and tell us, what about the multi-millions of males and females, and I'm saying males and females because I don't like to use the word boy. I don't even think I use that word except I'm quoting someone. So I'm using males and females in their earlier years. And they are not lesbians. They are not gay. That throws out the theory. And notice how Umar got up there and he stated, I am not talking about what some researcher, some white researcher stated. So Umar Johnson wants you to take his word for something based on fallacy. And what do I mean by fallacy? He stood up there and stated he had been a therapist for 20 years back in 2015. Remember the other video? Then he stated he was a therapist for 25 years. Well, at least he started changing the years because we were on his ass. Throughout the years, he kept saying 20 years. So now he's added the 5 years on, finally, when he had this interview with Lamont Hill. And he's still adhering to the same bullshit. He doesn't give you one single solitary article to reference. I'm referencing at least 5 articles on the bottom. This is 5 is not even touching, it's not even scratching the surface of the multiple research, longitudinal studies, which means different points of time that they are following people with larger sample sizes. And they were looking into these issues. Versus Umar saying, because what? Believe me? Because I have provided therapy services to gay people, to LGBT population, and 90 or 95%, he can't make up his mind, tell me that they were molested and that's why they're gay. I'm here to tell you that is absolutely not how therapy works. And I'm going to tell you something else. Umar is a liar because he has never been a therapist. So let's pretend, let's make believe that Umar was a therapist, and let's go with this scenario that he has just given. If you are a therapist, unless you are working specifically with the LGBT population, like in a center that is specifically set up to assist that population with multiple needs, your clientele is not going to consist of, just by chance, hordes and hordes and hordes of the LGBT population. You are only going to get that if you work or you target your population of service with this specific group. And Umar has never done that. Umar has never been a therapist. Even when he claims he went through this doctoral program, which I don't believe. But even if he did that, let's pretend again. Let's say Umar did, and he did this internship or practicum while he was still in school. Is he trying to tell us that the overwhelming majority of the people he saw were LGBTs from the population? Because I'm saying that is because you would need a very large sample size to be able to make that statement. You can't go by just on the people that you see. That's not a scientific study. Where are the control variables? Are you talking about men? Are you talking about women? What are the ages? There's so many things that need to be considered when you are doing research and you're trying to gather information. So for Umar to say, forget about the white man, and that's an insult because there are plenty of researchers who are not white. There are black researchers. There are researchers from all over the world who have studied this issue. Umar Johnson is simply making statements based on his pre-designed rhetoric, which is to target the LGBT group for attack, just like he targets other groups. See, that's why I don't really stay with this issue, because Umar does this to how many different groups. But his references in this regard are particularly destructive. They're destructive. They're false. There is absolutely no information that Umar Johnson came to you and gave you. Now, I'm going to give you some articles that cover both areas. I just would encourage you to read, people. Read. Look at information. Try to form some semblance of a rational thought about this topic based on some reliable research. And as much as people don't want to hear the word research, research has helped us immensely. And this is how you move the field forward. There have been so many things about the mental health field, when you think about history, that have negatively impacted our people. But we have made significant strides. Significant strides have been made, and we have been able to include or encourage more of our people to receive or to seek services. So Umar wants to try to keep you in this archaic disposition, this archaic mindset. But listen to this. He knows enough to tack on that he's a therapist. He knows enough to lie about it because he knows it has value. He knows that saying he's a therapist means something. But I'm here to tell you, there is no therapist that would ever conduct him or herself in this manner that was responsible and ethical. Because when somebody comes to you for help, you don't tell the people what they're going to talk to you about. They tell you why they're coming for help. So Umar's just going to just force an issue on them. Say that a person comes to you and they're gay. How do you know they're coming to you to address that? Maybe they're coming to you because they're depressed. Maybe they have a substance abuse problem. They're having a breakup. The issues are endless. So Umar wants people to think every gay person who seeks therapy is seeking therapy because they're struggling with how and why they are gay. And am I saying that has never occurred? Of course I'm not. But according to Umar, he has gathered so much data. Why doesn't he put this in a peer-reviewed journal article? Because he is lying. He has never, ever been a therapist. So his whole statement is bullshit. So he just stood up there on a stage back there in Kansas City. He got on this interview with Lamont Hill, looked in the camera and told a lie. He has never been a therapist. So the entire statement is null and void. And it isn't the way things work out when you are helping people. They do not come to you with this pre-designed formula to give you. If that's the case, why are they coming to therapy? If they've already figured it out, what's the point of coming to see Umar Johnson? Mind you, this extremely large population of LGBTs are seeking out Umar because they have to talk to Umar about why they became gay. They want Umar Johnson to know this, so they're making a beeline for Umar Johnson, who, by the way, doesn't even have a freaking office. Before COVID, he never had an office. And where is he providing this therapy now? At the abandoned bomb shelter that has no running water with shit in the toilet? Umar Johnson is again violating the law, holding himself out to be a therapist when he never has been a therapist. In addition to that, he is spreading these destructive messages. And then here's the other thing Umar Johnson likes to say. I don't agree with this lifestyle. Do you all realize that coming to therapy doesn't have a damn thing to do with whether or not you agree with the people who are coming to see you? Who the hell cares if the therapist agrees with something? I shouldn't even say last thing. That's not even on the chart. That A person is coming to therapy for whatever reason because they're trying to appease the therapist. That's Umar Johnson's mindset. It doesn't have a damn thing to do with what we do in this field. And it just causes me just nightmares when I think about him running around here telling people that he's a therapist. Why is it? Because whatever he has, so-called credentials, and we don't even know if these are really his, but he's using them, they are pending inactivation. And why are they pending inactivation? Because Umar did not complete the continuing education requirements. So even in his so-called field, he is not even cutting muster. But he wants to bleed over into this field where he has no business, he has no knowledge, he has no office, he has no skills. He is out only to find out where blame can be placed. Then what comes next for Umar Johnson after this? All this build-up, all this hollering and screaming and pointing fingers and blaming and lying and threatening to hunt people down. Money. Begging for your money. The overriding reason why he's assuming this disposition now and coming out with all of this is because he is salivating over Kevin Samuels, the money he is making, or he thinks he's making, and the subs he is getting. Umar knows competition is in the house, and he doesn't know how to go about competing because he can't with what he has. So he's got to make up all this garbage. He's lied for so many years, for so many reasons. He just simply recycles the lie. And this time, it's because he's panicked that Kevin Samuels is stealing the spotlight. And there really wasn't a spotlight when you think of it. Umar was the one screaming the loudest, acting the fool, running around just completely acting like I call him, hyena yelping. But with these interviews he's coming up with now, he's trying to compete with Kevin Samuels, trying to be calm and cool and collected. Please, people, we already know why Umar Johnson is running scared for this reason and so many others. The money, the chump change is slipping away. All this build-up, all this hollering and screaming and pointing fingers and blaming and lying and threatening to hunt people down. Money. Begging for your money. He goes for these hot button issues, and this is one of them. It's in his bag of dirty, nasty tricks. Also, there's something else going on here because he can't seem to stop talking about it. Every chance he gets, he has to find a way to infuse this topic onto other people. You don't even need to be bringing up or discussing the issues of LGBT. Umar Johnson essentially forces it on everyone. It's almost like a reflex that he talks about this issue. It constantly comes up over and over and over again. A heterosexual male who has access to relatively healthy relationships with women, they would talk about this day in and day out. Doesn't make any sense. We remember how long and hard Eddie Long drove hard against so-called, quote, homosexual lifestyle, end quote. Drove so hard against it. And what did we learn? Well, I don't even want to say what did we learn. It was pretty much an open secret that there were issues going on. Who can say for sure what is going on with Umar? One thing is for sure, if he's going to run his mouth and start citing people and mentioning people's names and including people on this list whenever they disagree with him, whatever comes after that is par for the course. He can't then try to say everyone else has to shut up while he continues to go around saying whatever the hell he wants about other people. In this instance, absolutely will there be no silence, because Umar is trying his hardest to find a way to stay in the scam bagging mix. So he brings up this therapist. Identification again. Although he got into so much hot water, well, again, anti-fraud warriors will oblige. You know there's always so much more to come. In the meantime, you know the drill. Buyer beware.